Hi, this is Beata from Splitcoaststampers. In this video, I want to show you the Retiform technique. There you sponge a grid onto your cardstock with different colored inks. I'm using distress inks, and then stamp images inside of it. For my sample, I use Crafty Secret stamps. Most stamps come from the Vintage Christmas stamp set. To start out with, I cut my main panel with Tim Holtz's Baroque Sizzix die. And what I like to do first is stamp my main image in the center of the panel. That way I know where to sponge around and that my main panel is big enough. Next, usually I just line up a scrap paper and sponge lines that way. But this time I wanted to have an oval sponged around my Santa. So I cut an oval with classic oval nestabilities into just copy paper. I'm adding repositionable adhesive, and then I'm going to sponge Vintage Photo ink on the inside. I always sponge from the outside in, that way your center in the panel is the lightest and it will look like it glows a little bit. The cool thing about the distress inks is that you can really blend them well. And just to make the edge look even more pronounced, I'm using a little bit of vintage walnut stain, a darker brown, just around the edge. Once the main panel is done, you take off your reverse mask, take off all the adhesive that got stuck on it, and then use the oval that you cut out of that reverse mask and cover up that panel. That will stay covered till we're done with all the other panels that we're sponging now. So now you take another scrap piece of paper and I'll start sponging. I'm going to make a panel like this. So this will be my first panel. Oh, I forgot one thing. Sorry about that. Before you do that, before you start sponging your panel, add a little bit of your darker color. You always use at least two colors, one for the inside of your panels and one for the outside of your panel lines, as I'll show you. So the inside we sponged with Vintage Photo, and now the outside I will sponge with Fired Brick, and just a little bit because otherwise we'll cover up our other lines. And now we're starting to make panels. Okay, so just pretend I didn't do this already. And then add that Vintage Photo. That, and then for this line here, that would be another little panel. And now we're placing the paper on the other side that we already sponged on that line. Now we're using the Fired Brick for the other side. Same here. Actually, I'm just going to continue this line down here and then add another Vintage Photo. Opposite side. Okay, now we have 1, 2, 3 panels. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you ever get that overlap, you just go over it again till you don't see the cardstock color anymore. Okay, and I'm gonna make one more panel, well, one more line, which makes 2 panels. Let's make it right here. And you can do that any way you want. And if you already have stamps in mind, then you'll have to plan a little bit more to make them fit. I have no plans. I'm just going to use the different stamps that come in the vintage photo, in the vintage Christmas stamp set. And then I'm going to sponge the edges all around. First vintage photo to make it darker. And here the lines are too pronounced, so I'm just smoothing it out with that red. And then I'm going over it again on the edge with walnut stain to make it darker. Now when you have all your sponging done, you can go over it a little bit more and more till it's a real rich color. I don't want to bore you with all that sponging, but there's nothing wrong with a lot of sponging. Okay, when I have my panels, then I cover them up again so only one panel is visible. And next are stamp images. And first I'm using the background stamp, the musical background stamp from this vintage Christmas set. I really love this. And I think I'm going to use it again on this big panel down here. And we have this tiny panel here, and I'm going to use walnut stain ink on some of the panels to make just stand out more. I love this little bird that comes with the set. Unfortunately, his head will be a little chopped off here. Then we have another big panel down here, and we have, let's see, I think I'm going to use the Sleigh Ride Santa for that. Just going to stick it on the other end so I don't have to clean. And I'm using vintage photo for most of my background panels because I don't want them to be more pronounced than my Santa in the center. So now we have 2 panels left. Another small one. You know what? I'm going to just put a border on that one. And this big one will get a lot of ho-ho-hos. Just going to stamp that full of this is a background. And then when you have everything stamped and you think it looks alright, then you take your mask off. And if you still see a little bit of white from your natural ivory or whatever you used as a background, you just sponge over it with the light color that you used. Here I'm using vintage photo. And then your Retiform panel is done. On mine I just stitched around the edges and layered it, added some embellishment, and the card was done. I hope you try it out. It's fun. See you next time.